Wow, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today. Our barbarian forgot how to read, so session's canceled. He can't even read his character sheet. Like it's real bad. We actually had to put him in class. That's why Matt's not with us today. But with me are Isaiah,
what's goody,
and Josh.
Greetings. Are we implying Matt is the barbarian of the group? Because I feel like that's inaccurate.
Considering she literally plays a barbarian in one of our campaigns, yes.
I mean, he's talking about Tina.
Okay, I guess. I was thinking Matt, the actual physical human being. I was like, I don't know if that checks out.
I mean, according to Matt's tragic backstory, he did spend time as a barbarian.
I mean, maybe in his past, maybe his dark past, yeah.
That means he's got a level somewhere.
Yeah,
I fucking guess.
Yeah, he just reverted real hard into the barbarianism.
Oh no, he returned to monkey.
Monkey. Thank you. You just gave me the best segue. All right, we're going to talk about character creation. However, no. All right, so I have recently been informed, okay, that
what the fuck is happening?
Not Whole Foods. What's the
HelloFresh?
HelloFresh, thank you, HelloFresh. HelloFresh was recently accused of using monkey slave labor to get their coconut milk.
Wait, what? Implying that the monkeys are...
So implying that there's a version where it's not slavery, so we're paying the monkeys? I guess.
Yeah,
no. Hold on. So me and my girlfriend went deep into this hole. All right. We went deep because she just says this to me, and I'm like, excuse the fuck out of me.
As you should.
So apparently, these monkeys not only are chained, beaten. Unless they collect 1,000 coconuts a day. That's their quota, 1,000 coconuts. They're also not allowed to eat the coconuts. But they're also sent to monkey school.
What? How? I'm so confused.
They are.
How does
picked up? Okay, so you know how Matt and Conan really likes to just go, "Ooh, baby," pick it up and leave.
I mean, yes, I'm aware that he engages in casual kidnapping. Yes.
So that's actually what they do. They literally go out into the wild. They pick up the monkey and they just leave. The monkey baby, they kidnap it. They bring it to school.
How does one bring a monkey to school?
Buddy, I don't know. I don't know that one. I don't know how to. Listen. They just teach them how to pick the coconuts at school. I don't have the details. But apparently, there are more than one school.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What?
The fuck?
I am so
they teach them how to
confused.
They teach them how to pick the coconuts, and then they're given to farmers in, I believe, Thailand.
How do you keep the monkeys from eating the coconuts?
You beat them.
But like,
we here at Sessions Canceled Podcast do not condone monkey violence. Anyways.
I mean, no, but I do want monkey answers. I don't.
I seek monkey retribution, if anything.
I mean, yeah, that too.
This is apparently been going on for like I think a few hundred years now too. It's not like a small thing.
The fuck?
It's been going on for a real long time. This monkey violence.
So it's just weird farmer animal abuse situation, I guess.
And the farmers are claiming they're more like family pets than anything, but they're tethered to a handler and beaten when they don't collect enough coconuts.
I mean, the tether part isn't like you leash your dog, right? So like the tether part I can understand, but the beating is
yeah, but they're also monkeys.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, we're making this is the circus problem all over again.
Sure, yeah, true. How is this a segue into what the fuck?
Because he said return to monkey. No, it had nothing to do with that. I just needed a way to talk about this today.
You just needed to.
I mean, if we're gonna add onto the pile of random bullshit that reminded me of for no other reason.
I wasn't gonna, but okay.
It's too late. I am. When I was in varsity track, we had this exercise that's supposed to stretch out your hamstring and your quads.
Yeah.
And it's called power skipping, right? Where you skip up in the air and you kick your leg up as high as you can. And the Hispanic runners amongst us, myself included, began referring to it as platano picking.
Oh.
So we just start screaming that as we power skip to the 50-meter line and back. And all of the white people were so confused. It's very funny.
So anyways, character creation.
Yeah. I think it's time we start talking about character creation.
I just really I've been thinking about the monkey slaves for a while, so I was just like,
please don't say it like that. Oh my god.
They're enslaving monkeys. Anyways,
I get what you're getting at, Isaiah, but in Sam's defense, how else are you gonna word it? They literally are slaved monkeys. Like, I'm
made deeply uncomfortable
I understand. Well, I get, what do you want? Enslaving primates? Like, I don't...
They're just indentured servants. They're not slaves.
This is a lose-lose scenario.
So anyways, character creation.
Any fucking way.
Yeah, no, so character creation. Hi, Sessions Canceled podcast, where we talk about TTRPG stuff. We do not talk about enslaved monkeys or world politics. That one really threw me for a loop. So anyways, character creation.
Yes.
I had a few things that I wanted to talk about with character creation, mostly the mechanical side of it, because I know we talked about like how you create a character, but not like the actual differences in mechanics between and how it helps or doesn't help you, because I think games like Powered by the Apocalypse and 5th edition especially, and 4th edition really help you through the process of creating a character, because it's literally a step-by-step process, whereas games like Shadowrun or any of the White Wolf games go so we got steps here, but just do whatever the fuck you want.
I guess it depends on what you mean by helping, right?
I mean, yeah. 5e's hey, here are stats. When you choose a class, it's hey, here's your main stats, that you want to put things into to have a fairly decent character. And original 5e doesn't include feats, so they don't really talk about feats. So there's not a huge amount of confusion on how characters are created, because it's okay, you pick class and race, you put stats, you're done. That's about it. You have background.
I don't know if this has been asked in the past, but I feel like I'm quite curious if we're talking about the mechanic side. What do you guys pick first when you're making a character?
Pretty sure we talked about this when we did character creation.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the same answer I had before. Boy, I hope it is. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it depends on the game. From a D&D context, I usually look at a class first, just as a mechanical concept. Most of the time.
Right. Yeah.
But not 100% of the time. And Apocalypse World is the same. I'll look at the playbook. But for Vampire the Masquerade, I mean, obviously that's a classless system, but the first thing I went to is just lore, basically. So it really depends on the game. And some games will give you an order, a specific one that's this is the best way to do it, and some games don't. I don't. Yeah. I like the suggestion. Doesn't mean I'm gonna accept it, but I'll take the suggestion, because I'm pretty sure 5e says race first.
Yeah, that one's
and I definitely don't do that.
So I mean,
5e says race.
On how I'm feeling. Yeah, I don't know why. It says
race, then class, then ability scores, then describe.
Ability scores can be done at any point.
Yeah,
so
literally any point. Also, I like this one.
So
step 4, describe your character. Step 5, choose equipment. What? I feel like describe should be that's a weird. I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know. Well, good. I mean, describing your character, I feel it should just be done in session 0 or session 1, and not like technically during the character creation process. Because like, sure, you have the like you may already have the idea of what your character looks like before you even like go any further.
I mean, I use equipment to inform the description a lot of the time, though, too. So like, I don't,
I mean, I already. This is just me, but I usually have an idea of what I want my character to be before I'm even like in class. Like thinking about what class specifically to do. So equipment doesn't really affect the appearance of my character because, I could just be like, okay, they're in their clothes, not in their equipment when I think about their appearance.
Oh, like weapon and stuff.
Yeah, I don't even need that. It's just them in their clothes. It's like when you look at the fucking character creation like 14 where you just have them in their racial clothes. It's pretty much how I think about it.
I guess.
Shout out to everybody who's like, yeah, my character's wearing plate mail, but like, that's just a stat thing.
I mean, yeah.
You are a breed who I am very jealous of.
Oh, why? Can you not just say it's just a stat thing?
I used to, and now I'm like, I think about it too much. Like I think about it from like a GM standpoint and also like a stat standpoint. So like I'll usually try to justify it in the flavor. So like at least had studded armor, but I just said it was like leather pads sewn into the like his greatcoat.
Yeah.
And like a breastplate's like, oh, it's like the Elrond like interwoven plates that are like super flexible, so like that's not that bad. But yeah, I use like whenever I'm like scale mail. You just wear scale mail. I just like
yeah.
That one's a little hard for me to be like, yeah, no, it's perfectly not that. But
well, especially because scale mail historically is kind of like anachronistic, right? We didn't.
Yeah.
What D&D means by scale mail wasn't necessarily a thing, but it kind of was. Yes, it's like the half plate also situate. Anyway, that's a different historical references in D&D. Different thing.
Either way, so I have a bunch of questions here, but like my first question was, what is your preferred method of character creation? And by that I mean, like, do you prefer the class system or a classless system? Because like I vary on it a lot because I like skill points, and classless systems really lend themselves to that. But I also understand the difficulty of players not understanding the classless system because they're like, well, I don't know how I want to build my character because of this. And it usually comes down to either one, the person running the game didn't really inform them, or two, they don't have a whole lot of information on the setting because either they didn't read or they've just never played the game before.
A classless system definitely has the potential problem of too many choices, so yeah, I don't know what the fuck to do kind of thing. Honestly, my preference in which one I like is heavily based on genre, which might sound a little weird at first, but like if I'm playing a distinctly Tolkienian fantasy thing, I want classes. If I'm playing something more like urban that's got a focus on like weird mystical shit or some sort of it's urban but this, like a Call of Cthulhu or something like that. I don't want
Call of Cthulhu, Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't want classes. If it's apocalypse, I want archetypes, but not necessarily classes. So I'm a little. It really is on genre.
Archetypes
for me.
are yeah.
Archetypes are the distinction for me being is archetypes tend to be a little broader.
Looser.
Yeah, they're a little broader, a little looser. You're not like a paladin, but you're like a holy defender of some nature kind of thing.
Yeah, I wrote some notes for myself, and a lot of the way that I described like having this like archetype classless is basically how diverse your characters can be. So like with class systems, like especially with D&D, it's kind of restrictive on how you can build your character, at least in the beginning. So you have less combinations of classes and races, whereas something like
you're just mathematically less permutations.
Yeah, and then Vampire, White Wolf games, and Shadowrun being classless is like, hey, have fun. You have these races, and like these races get whatever, but also like skill points. Here are a million skills. Have fun, loser. And how that also attributes itself to like the greater possibility of just having a character that isn't good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be straight Hundy with you, my guy. I'm gonna go off a limb and probably say I like class systems more, because like you said, I get very stressed out when I have to be like, but what if I built them wrong? But what if I don't build them the way I want to build them? Or what if the way that I want to build them changes later on, and then I can't change? And just like it's like. I'm gonna default to like the way that I play Dark Souls, which is I'm gonna put skills in everything, which is an awful idea. So Literally. When you're playing a class system, it's like the game won't let me do it. You know what I mean? It's like a paladin. Okay, well if I don't put a bunch of my stats in charisma, I'm gonna be a pretty shit paladin.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I both agree with you and don't at the same time. Because games like Shadowrun, it gives you an idea of what characters can be. You're literally like, they have, street samurai, rigger, those are archetypes, quote unquote. They're Decker. They're defined, but you do not have an actual class.
Yeah, Shadowrun's weird because it is a classless system, but the archetypes in Shadowrun are so solidified that you actually kind of do end up making a class.
Yeah. So like games that have an example of how like a character can be made, and it's like very like, hey, this is exactly what they do. This is what they would do for the team, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, okay, so I have a basic understanding of what a character would look like. You end up not having that problem. Whereas something like Vampire is like, yeah, so like you have the different clans, but like, and they do these things, but like you don't have to do that at all.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting, actually, it's funny you say Vampire.
Vampire does it more like clans.
Vampire has a similar, so Vampire has this a little bit, but Shadowrun more so. The thing that's weird, or the thing that's, I don't know if this is intentional or not. If I'm giving the designers the benefit of the doubt, this is intentional. If I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, they just somehow overlooked this. But the thing that's kind of funny about the Shadowrun situation is, so common archetypes in Shadowrun, you have a street samurai, you'll have a rigger, you'll have a decker, you'll have a technomancer, you'll have a mage, you'll have an adept, and you'll have a shaman. Those are generally the main ones. Street samurai is really broad, right? Because it's just,
I do thing with gun. I do thing with sword.
Anything with gun, anything with sword. Yeah, it's your warrior type, right? Like everything from the guy who uses knuckle dusters to the guy who uses the katana to the lady who uses dual Uzis, right? Those are all street samurai. So street samurai, this doesn't apply to so much. But like rigger, decker, technomancer, mage, adept, you don't technically have a class. But in order to play that style of character, you have to pick specific things that are basically just you picking the class. Because
pretty much
a good example, if you want to play a decker, you have to get a deck and you have to have certain things in certain places to even use the deck. So it's basically picking a class without actually picking the word decker, I would go to say that you're picking a specialization, not necessarily like a class, because you can still branch out into other places. You can branch out, but like particularly with the mages, right? So
the mages are a little
mage, shaman, adept, and technomancer.
You're basically just playing a different game than everybody else.
A little bit. So like the thing about like a technomancer in particular, because this one I actually played, also I might be calling it the wrong thing, but basically
I know what you're talking about though.
A technomancer is someone who's a decker, but they don't actually have a deck. They can magically connect so it's like a different form of magic, but they can like magically connect to computers and enter the cyberspace and everything. But you have to take, I forget what, you have to take like a certain set of abilities to actually be able to do that. And you have to be born a technomancer, right? It's kind of like a sorcerer thing. So you kind of are picking a class, even though there's nowhere on your sheet that it says you're the technomancer class. There's you have no choice. So you sort of are anyway. And that's where Shadowrun gets into a weird space. I don't know if I like or dislike it. It's just an interesting thing. And Vampire the Masquerade does it a little bit too, because it's like, all right, you want to play a vampire who's a big, tough, brawly boy. You kind of have to pick Bruja because they give you or Bruja or Gangrel, I think is the other one. Yeah, because they give you the options. They'll give you the abilities at character creation to do that thing. So again, you're not necessarily picking a class, but if you're going for a specific thing, you sort of are kind of picking a class via the clan.
Yeah, it's
which is interesting. I don't know if that's good or bad necessarily.
Yeah,
it's it's just an interesting way to do that, because
it's a weird way to do it. Yeah,
because you kind of like it's like the specializations with Shadowrun. You kind of funnel people into this idea of what they want to play.
Yeah,
but not necessarily force them into it. Again, it's more like a specialization than a full-on class, because it's like, yeah, this person's gonna have these different abilities, and eventually, like later on, you can take a few bits and pieces of others, but like those are your vampire powers.
Yeah, right. Those are your vampire powers, or like you can be a technomancer who's also good with guns eventually. Yeah. So I guess what it is it's kind of like you're picking your class at the beginning, but you're not locked in the way you are in D&D.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say for vampires is that it's very forgiving. We're in that, like,
True.
You get like 3 out of your 4 abilities, like right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get the other one as you like level up, quote unquote. So it's not like you're not really you're not starved for choice, but you're not also overloaded with choice, because you do get a pretty wide spread of the shit you can do. Like I know Nico could have taken Celerity, could have taken I took Presence, and what's the one that lets you see the future? Fuck.
I know doesn't matter.
Yeah, I took like the one that lets you see the future, the one that like gives you heightened senses, and I think I didn't choose a third one because I wanted extra stuff for the future sight. But even then, like it just felt like this just makes logical sense. Like I don't have a reason or need to take the 3rd branch or 4th branch, so it was very like. I'm not doing a great job explaining this mechanically, but like, as someone who doesn't really think about the mechanics that hard when it comes to like non-5e games, just because I don't know them as well. Yeah, it made it pretty good and easy, which is amazing, because I figured that the character creator for fucking Vampire was going to be this awful, horrendous nightmare.
It used to be.
I've heard, that's why I was scared, and like it just wasn't. It was like
No, they improved that game a lot.
Tuned it up quite a bit.
It's funny because I remember playing, I don't remember what fucking version, but I remember playing your White Wolf game, and I was just like, oh, this is painful, because combat was real bad. And it was like the base like adventure that we were running through, and it was just bad.
Yeah, I don't even know. I do want to know what, because you've mentioned this both on and off air before. I do want to know what system you were playing specifically, because there are a lot of systems under White Wolf, but you were playing humans, so I'm like, what the fuck? You like,
you know what I mean? I was gonna try and tell you. I typed in White Wolf game to pull up their thing, and I think it might have been Hunter the Vigil.
Oh, one of the Hunter games. Oh, that could
it might have been Hunter.
That would make sense.
It may have been Hunter.
What's the difference? Because I know there's Hunter the Reckoning, and then Hunter.
Oh, it's the different editions.
I was gonna say, I think it's editions.
Okay. Yeah, like Vampire Mage, Hunter, and Werewolf are all the different. This is what you're playing as, and then there are the different games.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Hunter the Reckoning, I believe, is a hack and slash game. for the White Wolf universe.
Oh, yeah. So I know it is. I was just wondering if like that was also the name of the game.
No, there's Hunter the Vigil, Hunter the Reckoning. I think it may have been Hunter the Reckoning that we played.
I think
Either way.
Reckoning only came out more recently.
Did it?
No, because Hunter
No?
because Sam was right. There is an original Xbox game called Hunter the Reckoning.
The Reckoning came out in 1999.
Oh,
Sheesh.
It may not have been the Reckoning, but my point is that it was probably Hunter. But anyways, like the system used to be like real bad, and it was one of those systems that it was like, the DM gets the final say, but the story matters more than the player's choices. Like it literally just outright says that.
yeah.
Wait. So,
Yes.
can you elaborate on what that means? I'm kind of confused.
Basically, the DM can tell you to go fuck yourself, if you do something that they don't like.
Or
So
the
you're
DM.
like, oh, I use this future sight power, and they go, no, you don't.
Pretty
Well,
much.
no, not necessarily
you
quite
don't-
that extreme. It'll be like, oh, I
mean,
use.
some people would.
Well, maybe some people, but it's the idea of like, oh, I use this future sight power and it tells me this information. And the DM does that thing where they only give you like the barest minimum of information. So it was basically a worthless ability to use kind of thing.
The good old legend lore.
Yeah, that. Yeah, basically that.
It may have been the Vigil.
Maybe.
Can I just
I
say,
don't talk to the people that I played with, so I literally cannot ask anybody if they remember.
Well,
I do really want to play one of the Hunter games because I just really like the idea of being like,
I do like the idea of it.
and like,
yeah.
if you run it back the way that like, you know, I don't know. The idea that it's like, oh yeah, we hunt vampires, but we have like some vampire homies who could like assist us in the fray. Like that'd be really cool.
It is also worth pointing out, by the way, as in reference to the what the fuck do you mean by that White Wolf games.
Second edition Hunter the Vigil came out March 2nd of this year.
Ah, okay.
That's what you're thinking.
Probably. White Wolf games, you have to, from a historical context, you have to remember that they were the
Bunch of writers.
It is a bunch of writers, so they tend to get a little flowery with their language, as you probably noticed in the vampire book. But also, when they started as a company, they were kind of branding themselves as the D&D dethroner, right?
Oh, God.
So they sort of took this stance of, well, the rules are they're basically a bunch of like weird tabletop hippies, because they were like, the rules are just a suggestion, man, it's all about the story, man. But then they gave you really overcomplicated rules because they're not actually very good designers, or at least they didn't used to be. They're better now, gauging by their more recent vampire game, but like they weren't very good designers, so there was a lot of like, you could just ignore this if you want, man. It's about the fucking story, bro. Gary Gygax can suck my dick. It was a lot of that energy. So, with that context in mind, the statement Sam was making, you know, there's some history behind it.
I just love Gary Gygax can suck my dick, bro.
That's like, it's kind of what they were doing, though. Like they were trying to be the like, we're the story game, but this, it's really funny.
They didn't
right?
want to be meanie mechanics. They wanted to be story, and it's like,
but they didn't do
forgot
anything
the fact
mechanically. They didn't. They wrote their games like D&D. Like there's too many rules, and there's rules about dumb shit. Like,
okay, well, not just that, but they like, okay, so the way that I would describe it is they had like, they really just kind of threw some fucking mechanics together, like threw it together, because like we have Shadowrun combat, but with less stat points and skill points.
Yeah, it was like,
because they were going off of like 3rd edition D&D level 1 characters kind of deal. So you end up with characters that just do not function because you're like, well, I have to specialize in one specific thing, or I literally cannot function, but I can't function outside of that one specific thing. Because okay, so to put this in perspective, and this does actually tie into character creation. So we were a group of 4, 1 DM, 3 players. Out of the 4, I was the only one with a lot of tabletop experience. So I knew how to make a character. So I looked through the rules and I was like, okay, I'll just be the punchy guy. And I told them that, like, look, I'll be the punchy guy. I'll have some points elsewhere, but like just in case push comes to shove, I will punch.
I punch
literally. And then we go through the whole thing. There's no combat, like almost zero combat through the entire first adventure until the end,
till the very
where
end.
we have to fight a boss. Let's just say, if I had not built my character for fighting, we would have gone from a 1 to 2 hour encounter to an impossible encounter where we literally could not complete it because we couldn't do damage to him.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's like it's that thing where, you know, some games will be like, we're not a game about combat. Anyway, here's 40 pages about combat, and you're like, all right, well, clearly somebody missed the memo. It was kind of that. That was kind of White Wolf was like, we're all about the story, man, but they didn't make any mechanics for the story. You know, like when modern games say they're about the story, you get, you know, Masks: A New Generation, where there are literally mechanics that influence your character's stats and affect the story and narrative of your character because adults make fun of you, and then your stats get adjusted based on what adults tell you to do, because that was what the game is about. You know, White Wolf didn't do any of that back in the day. So, yeah. As far as like messing up your character, definitely that was on the table for those games back in the day.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like most games these days are good enough. Like,
they're pretty streamlined in the way that they explain things. Now,
there is a game, but also I feel like people are just generally good enough designers to avoid that problem most of the time. Like, you can't fuck up so atrociously that you're just completely screwed most of the time. Most of the time. Look at you, Shadowrun.
All right, I'm gonna ask for help here. My ability to remember names is not here, like it usually isn't. The shonen game that we want Matt to run.
Oh, Kamakari God Hunters.
Kamakari, yeah, thank you. Okay, that game's character creation and its explanation of how you do it is atrocious. It's real bad.
It looked like it. I gave it a skim through when we first discussed it, and it was like, they hit you with so much information that I was just like,
there is like,
this is gonna be a rough.
No, it's real bad.
Gosh.
Because so here's the thing. So so instead of being like, here are the archetypes, it's like, this is a character that you can create, and like it makes you think that there are classes,
and there aren't,
and there sort of are, but there aren't. And it's just this, and like, it basically, imagine there were like, I guess it's kind of like the clans system in Vampire,
or the Shadowrun situation,
but the Shadowrun skill points.
Cool.
Oh, and then, but like you can, that's the problem, because like you're not locked into like this, like you don't take the I almost said the Hokage clan. You don't take the wind clan and you get wind spells. Like, no, you pick this, and then you can pick wind spells, fire spells, water spells, blah blah blah. Like, you just go all over the place and just fuck your character. So like I've been thinking about that for a while, because that one's real bad. Like, I've gone through it and I didn't understand it until I went through it 5 or so times, and I went, oh, I finally understand that there is no classes.
Oh, that sounds unpleasant.
Yeah, and it's not like a burning wheel situation where it's like, all right, so here's about 3 pages of character creation notes, and then they tell you, they give you rules, they give you tips, they explain all the different types of mechanics that you can use, they do all this stuff, and then they're like, all right, so here's character creation. Because the game, and here's one thing that I really think that a lot of newer players lack when it comes to understanding how character creation affects you, is that you don't understand the rules, you don't know anything about the rules, and you haven't had someone sit down with you and like try to go through character creation with you. You sit there and you go, bro, I don't know what the fuck this means, I'm just gonna pick numbers.
Yeah, that's one of those
which is why we end up with characters who are like, oh, I want to be the punchy build, but they don't take a weapon to punch with in Shadowrun, and you end up with a character that doesn't do damage,
or the mechanical bones.
Yeah.
That's one of those things, that's like, I don't want to say infinite, but like a long going debate is if you should do, in your book, should you explain the rules first or the character creation first?
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's a good answer.
There's no good answer. I feel like
Seems like
I think the best quote unquote answer is giving a small explanation as to what there is in character creation. I'm about to pull up my fucking Burning Wheel book. Like give a small explanation of rules, how like what stats do what, where they're good, where they're bad, and what you should do, and then give tips for character creation, literally like Burning Wheel does.
I was gonna say like the 5e quick build thing.
Yeah, like the Burning Wheel book. Well, the Burning Wheel books go like above and beyond because they literally have little footnotes everywhere that have little characters assigned to them to be like, this is advice. This is just me rambling. Hold on. Let me go. I'm gonna go get my book.
Oh no, he's gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's like a little goblin character that does little like editor notes or like author notes throughout the book.
I love that. I love that so much.
But some of them are just kind of like fucking around.
Yeah, hold on. I got my book. It was literally like 2 feet away from me. Because of course it was. But like, yeah, it's 3 little guys. They are called the Instructor, the Ranter, and the Weeper. It's literally a section called Voices in My Head. This character indicates that I'm asking the reader to take note. The text following him is written in my voice rather than the rules voice. I call this guy the Instructor. You can call him Luke if you want to, for example. Thanks, Luke. That was very helpful. This is the Ranter. He rears his ugly head whenever I'm yelling about something. This usually comes in the form of harsh advice or warning regarding the limits of Burning Wheel. Take what he says with a grain of salt. For example, I wish Luke would shut up. And then the Weeper is the strange one, prone to outbursts of tears at the oddest times, sometimes tears of sadness, sometimes fear, and sometimes tears of joy. He frequently squirts when death or something else is very scary is near. What's he carrying on about now? So it's like, he literally is just like, hey, these little guys, they're going to help you out. They're going to tell you basically what I think is the most important thing for you to know, what you can kind of just, you listen to, but you don't have to actually follow 100%.
He was trying to make it a little more of like an entertaining read.
Yeah. And it is. It genuinely is. It makes the whole read better, especially because the Burning Wheel rulebook itself. Oh, fuck it. I forgot that it has the entire index in the back. With the index included is about 600 pages.
Yeah, it's long.
Oh my God.
It's a big book.
Yeah. It is worth pointing out, though, like with every RPG, where some of the pages, like, for example, you don't
some of them
have
are
to...
tables.
Some of them are tables, and also some of them are things you don't need to look at if you're not concerning yourself, right? Like a lot of people will look at, like, just to take an easy example that I know off the top of my head, for 5e, a lot of people look and be like, oh my God, that's so much to read. And it's like, yeah, but like when you get to the section on classes, you don't have to read that. You could skip the whole class section until you decide what class you're going to play, and then only read the section for your class. And even then, you don't really have to read the whole thing. You just have to look at the information you immediately need.
So to put it
Burning
in
Wheel is similar.
Character creation, and there's a reason for this,
is very long.
Is very long. It starts at page 77, not 700. Oh God, 77, and ends at 251.
Give me those numbers again real quick.
77.
Okay.
And ends at 251. But the reason for that though is because
character creation's a game, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a mini game that you play by yourself.
Yeah.
And he literally says, do it multiple times before you even play the game. So you get a full, like a decent understanding of how character creation works. You don't fuck up your character, like too bad, unless you're playing an orc, which can be the goal. And you have a better understanding of what you're playing, because there are humans, there are elves, there are dwarves, and there are orcs, and they all have different life paths, and that's why those sections are so long.
It's worth pointing out also, to someone who's listening, that may sound like a completely insane statement to say that character creation is like, 200 pages.
Oh yeah, that too.
But no. But the thing about Burning Wheel is your characters are the game.
Yeah.
Like Burning Wheel is almost kind of not about anything other than the characters in the group.
Yeah. It's literally the life of your characters that you're following.
Yeah, like the way that a GM in Burning Wheel runs a Burning Wheel game, and this is also what the game tells you to do, is basically whatever the characters say are their like wants and beliefs and like connections, you as the GM are just supposed to fuck with and twist those dials at all times. Like that's how you run the game. You look at what characters you have in front of them, and then you push back against, you know, they'll make a statement, they'll have an instinct. For an example, a character will have a belief that's like, women never do anything wrong. Like that could be like a knightly character's belief, like women do no wrong. And then you as the GM are supposed to go, interesting. What if I told you about the princess who killed her brother? And you're like, and like that's literally,
she had a great reason to do it.
Yeah, that's literally supposed to be the game. Is like you as the GM push and pull against the characters, because Burning Wheel that's what it's about, is the group. So character creation being really in depth, it's for a purpose. You know, it's kind of like the same idea when you look at how many pages there are dedicated to combat in D&D. You're like, that's crazy. But then you're like, well, the game's about combat, right? Like, that's the point. So that's what gets the most attention. Like, it, you know, it sounds insane from the jump, because a lot of games are trying to have shorter character creation, not longer. But there is a reasoning to it.
There absolutely is.
There's a grand master plan, if you will.
I do love the Burning Wheel system, though. It is not just in character creation, but I think its character creation system is quite brilliant. Just due to the fact that there's almost nothing like it. I can't think of a single
I don't know of any other game that
tabletop.
works quite like it. I've heard Traveler from back in the day has a similar vibe, but I don't know exactly in what capacity.
In regards, yeah, I'd have to look at the rulebook. But also like, just the way that skills develop is quite literally just by your character being them.
Doing the skill.
Doing the thing.
Do the thing.
Oh, I get better at tinkering by tinkering, you know? Which is, this is supposed to be a very long form game. It's not supposed to be a few sessions. This is like, you spend a couple of years of your life playing this game.
Few sessions is not on the table for Burning Wheel. I mean, okay, look, obviously it's a tabletop game, right? You could always do a few sessions if you fucking want, but it's one of those things
the way
where,
the game is designed.
Yeah, you gotta be aware of the fact if you're doing a couple of sessions, you are missing.
You're missing most of the game.
You're not playing the whole thing.
You're just playing the system to understand the system.
Yeah, you're playing
at that point. Either way, Burning Wheel, I occasionally just read this book. I know it's a rule book. I know that sounds insane, but I love it. It's just a little bit. It's very interesting. Listen, I used to read the World of Warcraft manual.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's, I mean, Sam is maybe not a good example here. However, in Sam's defense, there are some rule books that are written in well enough and interesting enough that they are kind of fun to read. Like, and I think that is one of those, and D&D is not one of them, by the way.
No, it's not.
Not at all. I think that's one of those things a lot of tabletop designers actually kind of miss out on, is they don't make it fun to actually read the rule book in some capacity. So it becomes such a chore that you just say, fuck it, don't read the rules, and then just make up your own goddamn rules, you know?
Yeah.
Because Apocalypse World is also really fun to read because the author has a very distinct, like, voice. Like, Apocalypse World feels like you're talking to this dude you met in a bar who's like kind of an asshole. And man, I wish he would stop cursing at me so much, but he does have some valid points. Like, so it's actually kind of interesting to read. And
I think
there's a lot of value in that.
I think the thing about Burning Wheel is that, and D&D tries to do this. I don't think so much as anymore, but a lot of the time when you have like you're reading mechanics, he literally has written out like small snippets of like a situation where this mechanic is actually coming into play, and not like Jim is sneaking down the hallway and he discovers that there's an orc. The orc hasn't noticed him. He goes in for the sneak attack. Like, hold on, let me get an excerpt.
It makes excerpts are interesting and kind of like fun. You know, it's
hold on, I literally just saw one
Damn
that I
train of thought.
yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. The thing that really bugs me about D&D is D&D has no author voice. Like D&D is written in such a fashion where it's like as neutral and unvoiced as possible, like it's being read to you by a text-to-speech device.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it definitely feels like it was written by multiple people because it's such a way that
so neutral.
There's no particular person speaking through it.
Yeah, there's no personality. So reading it, you're like, these are words written by a computer written by a person on a computer.
Yeah,
they are indeed words. Oh boy. It's
God, I forgot. Okay, so I've found a few excerpts, and one of them is literally 2 paragraphs long.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna read that one, but there's so this is a situation where they're talking about successes in the game. I want to humiliate him. They can't ignore me, shouts Andy, enraged. How? Inquires the GM. I raise my voice and insult him in front of the entire party. I use my conspicuous skill. Roll. Your obstacle is 3 to gain the attention of the crowd and be heard. Extra successes will go toward incensing them with a spectacle. 4 successes. Your insults are heard flung across the room. Some eyebrows are raised. He stops walking away from you and turns, red in the face. It seems you have a moment in which you are the center of attention. Like, things like that, instead of like Andy is walking down the hallway. He notices the orc. I stab. There's a little bit more to it.
Energy to him.
Yeah. And you know, there's the one with 2 paragraphs, which I read quickly, but I was like, no, it's not gonna, you know, it has something, but it's gonna take too long. So yeah, Burning Wheel definitely takes an interesting spot in the TTRPG world because it feels very much so like it just doesn't fully belong with everything else, but it still is interesting and honestly should be played. But again, you know, there's a lot of things.
Tall order.
It's a tall order. It's a long game. Whoever's running it has to be really into it, and everybody playing it has to be able to, you know, read.
It is worth pointing out, though, also in terms of the game being long. If I remember correctly, the game also specifically instructs you to kind of do it like a series of novels where there's sort of bookends. Like, we have finished book 1. We will come back to book 2 in a month. And when we come back, it will be a totally, like, we're going to start in a different place. There'll be a time skip. Your characters will be in a different situation. I may have you guys make some rolls. So, like, it's also that kind of thing where they know if it's going to be a longer form game that you should break up the flow at a certain point.
There is
you should do it in D&D too, by the way. People, you
can, yes. You can. I like how this became about Burning Wheel and not character creation. But I mean, Burning Wheel's character creation is very very unique in a lot of ways. And honestly, you know, we actually covered some of my questions already. Like, do you think the lack of understanding of character creation cause people to be less inclined to create enjoyable characters? And by enjoyable, I mean like characters that, you know, function but are also like a character. Yeah, like, you know, Shadowrun. You know, you can create a character that can't punch someone to death, but they can punch.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if a character creation system is like obtuse or generally unclear or just written kind of funky, it can definitely kill enthusiasm for sure. Especially because I think a lot of people, I know I do, a lot of people look at the character creation system for a game, and that will inform a big decision on if they want to play it or run it or whatever. And so even if the game's really good, if the character creation section to get to playing the game is funky, yeah, I mean, that can be an issue real quick.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've had an example where I looked at the character creation and said, LOL, nah.
I mean, literally, my only example is Kamigakiri.
Oh, yeah, I know. That fucking what was it called, Josh? We were at the Newbury Comics in the Palisades. It was like
the anime D&D.
Yeah, it was called Anime D&D, and it was
Anime 5e.
Sam. It was so fucking funny.
It
but
was
the character, at the same time, was far simpler but far more complex than actual fucking.
It was really weird because they tried. It was I think the game was trying to be like, oh, we're gonna take out the grid tactical stuff and focus a little more on the like, anime vibe, right? So the over the top kind of cinematic thing. But then we got to the character creation rules, and there were modifiers that, I shit you not, were like, because you're a halfling, your attack damage is reduced by 1 1/4.
Yeah.
Not like 2 dice or like 3 points. It was like 1 1/4, or because you're a troll, you get a multiplier of 1.8, and you're like, what the fuck? And the chart was huge, and every single creature's size affected different things. So like halflings had really high AC, but really shit attack bonus. It was wild. And me and Isaiah looked, there were so many races too. Oh my God, there were so many races. And me and Isaiah looked at that and we were like, oh, I was interested, and now I'm like, nah, maybe not.
And I mean, I speak for yourself. I'm still fascinated by this game.
It was also it was like what do they call those books? Like a fucking little like shitting on the toilet type book. Like it was a small
it was like a booklet. It
was like a booklet,
booklet. You see shit?
Because it was thick. It was like
thick. Yeah, it was really thick.
Listen.
It was like double the thickness of 5e, which like obviously it's going to be, if it's much smaller, you need to put the same amount of information.
Fair enough.
It was weird, but it was
so fucking funny, dude.
It was like a pocket edition type thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was like a pocket edition, and it was just.
But normally pocket editions are, little sparser on the writing and rules. This was not.
No, absolutely not.
So like, okay, so I was gonna ask, like, how far are you willing to go into like the nitty gritty of rules to like get into character creation? But like, and then I heard that, and I was like, I love math, but when you start telling me that I have a
1 1/4,
1 1/4
modifier?
less damage, or 1.8 times to all damage, I'm just gonna look at you like you're insane.
Also, the character sheet was like less pages and more pared down than the 5e sheet, which begs a lot of questions.
Yeah, because again, the actual sheets were like the actual creation was far more complicated.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I not as complicated. Like there was some shit they were like, that doesn't matter, it's whatever. But then 1 1/4 damage, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of how far I'm willing to dive, I think here's the thing. Usually if a game's character creation is kludgy, then that means the whole game is going to be, because it's really hard to have like a situation like, how are you going to have, because if you're making a kludgy character creation system that's like really bloated, well, your players are going to want to use.
I'm talking about bloated, but I'm like talking like, how much are you gonna read into the rules to see, this is how I would make a rigger.
Figure it out? Yeah.
Because like I will go in and I will read. I read the whole book most of the time. Like I will go through and read the book, mostly because I'm interested to see how they decide to do like certain rulings and shit.
Yeah.
That's less because of character creation and more I want a deeper understanding of the game, so when I start playing it, I'm not sitting there with my thumb up my ass. But that also gives me a greater understanding of how character creation will actually affect the game. So,
I think a good attitude to have is like it's like rule of 3. Like if you're reading through the rule book and there's 3 separate times where you couldn't figure something out and you checked the book and you couldn't figure that out, so you had to look online and then you had to figure it, then you figured it out. If that shit happens 3 times, it's not gonna happen. Like,
yeah, I mean that's certainly a method. I do it a little more on feel, which I guess I guess this is one of those things that you can only do if you've played a good amount of games, because otherwise you can't compare and contrast very well, right? Like you don't know what a well-designed game is if you've only played one game. Yeah. But for me, the way I do it is if character creation is kludgy and bloated, then I will usually look at it and go, okay, this is an indicator of, this is like a dark portent of times to come usually.
Yeah, it's usually a great warning of how the rest of the game is designed.
It's a great seismometer. Is that what it is to like
litmus
detect
test?
Litmus test is another way to put it. But if I'm looking, I will look in deeper, and if I'm looking in deeper and what I'm finding is that whatever the kludginess is, if I'm still feeling it in other places in the book, then I'll be like, it's just not worth it a lot of the time. So it's kind. I don't have a system, but it depends. Mm-hmm. It's very on the fly. I'm feeling the vibe.
You know, I just realized that some of the things that I wrote down are specifically targeted at Matt, and he's not here. So,
such as,
damn it.
Are you afraid of learning new systems and therefore learning how to create characters in said systems?
Fucking got him.
I mean, you know, look, I can understand the frustration or hesitancy.
I get it, but it's also like once you learn two systems, it's kind of like
well, I think what you realize is there's a
great familiarity with most systems.
It's so all right, everybody grab your shot glasses. Here comes the fighting game comparison. It's legacy skill. All right.
Replay it.
There may not be a lot of crossover between like, just because I know how to play Street Fighter V does not mean I know how to play Guilty Gear, right? However, because I played Street Fighter V, I do know what a DP motion is. Mm-hmm. I do know how to do a quarter circle. I know how to block. I have a general idea of the footsies, right? So there's legacy skill that even though it's a totally different game, there's certain things that carry over. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, for me in particular, as someone who's found myself in this position often with both tabletop and fighting games, I'll look at a mechanic and go, this is that other mechanic. Now I get it. Right?
I mean, so should put that in perspective. In 14, there are mechanics where we literally just call it by the first name that it ever showed it came up.
Like Exaflares,
Luna Dynamo,
Luna Dynamo. There's a lot of
this is moon ruins to me. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
What Sam is saying is like there's certain mechanics in 14 that will get reused.
Oh no, I know that. But like you said, Lunar Dynamo. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking.
That one's actually Lunar
Dynamo and Chariot.
Pretty recent, or no?
No.
What's the Lunar Dynamo from?
Lunar Dynamo, I believe, is from the nail fight, which is
that's right.
Turn 9.
That's yeah.
LMAO.
Yeah, turn 9.
That's right. They reuse the name in Ruby Weapon. Anyway.
Yes, because it's nail.
Yeah, because it's nail.
Spoilers. Oh fuck. Spoilers for Shadowrun.
For Shadowbringers.
A while ago.
Brett, bleep it out. It's fine.
To give a more a comparison you could latch on to a little bit. No, actually, never mind. Maybe that one didn't work either. I don't know. Anyway,
it's like how there's the spin dash in Sonic the Hedgehog too, and in other Sonic games, like the mechanic is there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like legacy skill was a good way of describing it.
Yeah. Well, to give you an example, right? An actual tabletop example. The obstacle system of Burning Wheel, if you've played Shadowrun, you could look at that and go, it's Shadowrun's dice pool system.
Yep.
Because they're so it's that idea of once you've read 2 games, you're like, okay, I can compare and contrast back and forth. I've read D&D and I've read Apocalypse World. Maybe Seize by Force isn't an attack roll, but like it kind of is an attack roll, so I can think about it as such, and then I can rationalize it that way. Once you go beyond 2 games, you could just do that ad infinitum to the point where learning new games gets easier and easier and easier because you can translate them. Yeah, right. Because you can translate them through that lens. So the hesitancy to learn a new character creation system, what you will find is character creation systems often
they're similar.
Yeah, they're similar a lot.
They're just really the same.
They borrow from each other a lot, even more so than the game itself necessarily. The character creation system will have like big similarities.
So like character creation Shadowrun has, you have your races. Like you pick a race, which is very similar to D&D, and you get special abilities, you get special like things that you can do as that, but also your stats are determined by your race. Very similar to how D&D does it. Not exactly the same, because there's still the stat array, but you get that stat array for your class.
Yeah.
Or your race, rather. So like...
you can compare it back. Of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, to our Matt here, I would say, do not be afraid,
don't
child.
Don't be a coward. Oh, no, I literally put in italics, don't be coward.
Yeah, so it's like... I believe technically, so Shadowrun, look, because I just opened up Shadowrun real quick. Shadowrun will have, so like, for example, you'll pick a human, and humans don't get a racial ability, so it says racial none, and your body starts at 1, your agility starts at 1, your reaction, I think, starts at 1, your strength, your will, your logistics, your intelligence, charisma, they all start at 1, and they can go up to 6. And that's human. If you're a troll, your body starts at 5 and can go up to 10. Your agility starts at 1, can only go up to 5. Your charisma starts at 1, can only go up to 4. So, Shadowrun, you'll be like, oh, this is weird. And then what you realize is like, oh, it's similar to D&D where it's giving me allocations, but it's also then just giving me a maximum on top of that.
Yep.
It's not any like...
It's very similar to things that are done in many other systems.
Yeah, it seems crazy, like, and then you legacy scale it backwards.
Further and look at like Powered by the Apocalypse with the playbooks. They usually give you the stats that you can choose from.
Yeah, you pick a stat array, and you just and you don't even get to allocate them. It tells you where they go.
No. Yeah, I know. That's
most of the time.
You get like 3 or 4.
Usually 4. Some games will actually let you. Some more recent Powered by the Apocalypse games have been letting you adjudicate them, and they basically just say your total when you add and subtract all your stats together, your total has to be +2 because in Apocalypse World they all add up to +2 total. But yeah, it's like there's ways you can look back and then be like, this is like that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and you could do it cross media sometimes. Like I remember when we started playing Star Wars, I was like, oh, this is WoW talent trees.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because it kind of is.
Wow. Yeah. Very much so.
So
because you get 3 specializations.
You get a specialization. You get points. They have to follow a certain path. I mean, it's all it's all.
It's just a talent tree.
It's a talent tree.
If you want to go even further, it's just Path of Exile, because you can go everywhere.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, it's like. It's like be not afraid, child. I guess I don't know. Play multiple games, which I feel like I'm always saying.
No, I mean, I agree. It is definitely, it's something like you may not like the system, but honestly, getting the experience from other systems will help you understand your own system more, like your favorite system, and maybe even DM it better.
I was gonna say it'll often make your DMing for the system you like more better. If you read Apocalypse World and you're like, I don't give a shit about Apocalypse World, I like D&D, but you play a little bit of Apocalypse World, you might come back and run D&D and be like, oh, I could steal this idea from Apocalypse World,
like fronts,
or oh, I could steal 7 to 9 successes. It's like read other games.
That's another one of my questions, though. Do you think people should read more? And the answer is yes.
Yes,
read
100%.
Read, please.
Even if you don't play them.
Don't be like Matt, who is just like, oh man, why would I read this system when I could just have you do it for me?
Even if you don't play them, at least fucking read them.
Fucker.
Also,
Matt, I love you, but you're a fucker.
I mean, I'm not gonna, look, I get it.
He did that to us in Conan. He's like, why would I read the dialogue when I could just have you do it for me? And I'm like, Matt, I shouldn't be building your character for it.
I mean, it is worth pointing out, Matt also has a player in his game who definitely should just be playing Pathfinder, and yet
Yeah.
So it's a thing. I get it, and I understand when people are annoyed when your response is just play another game, forehead. But you gotta look at both sides of the fence. Like, yes, I get it. Some people don't really just are like, fuck it, I really just do not want to play another game. It's like, okay, that's fine.
You may find a game that you really love.
You may find you gotta accept the trade-off there. It's also worth pointing out a lot of the time when people say just play a different game, it's because someone's trying to homebrew a game so much to the point where it's like, why do you even bother? Like, I want to make I want to run D&D, but I want it to be about criminals, and they're running their and they're trying to go from the bottom and start a whole criminal empire, and it's all about being thieves, and they're working in the night, and it's like, or you could just play Blades. And it's like, no, I want to hack D&D to do it. It's like, yeah, but Blades already solved this problem. It's like, yeah, but hacking D&D. It's like, okay, well.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go back.
Reel me in, Sam. Reel me in.
To White Wolf. So I have the newest edition of Hunter the Vigil open. And so the character creation is not as long as Burning Wheel, but it is still around, like, I think it's 52 pages total. Which isn't terrible. However, it does have a section that's just called endowments.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean,
I couldn't help myself.
I was like, all right, I know that's not what they mean, but I don't think the word endowment was the best thing to use there.
Hell yeah, big peepee.
But it's very much so the same as like Vampire, where you create your character. I don't think they have clans per se. I think they have what's called anchors, which is basically like the character's goals, their touchstone, their virtues, their vice, and that helps you create the character. If you remember what touchstones are in Vampire.
Yeah.
Which is like, so I both like and dislike when a specific mechanic is part of character creation, but it also affects your character's backstory. Like, I think...
Wait, you do or don't like that?
Do and don't.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence about it as well.
Like, I don't particularly like the way that D&D does backgrounds. Like, I like the special skills, and I like, I should say abilities, and then skills being like upgraded, or you get like, proficiency in a skill for being, a scholar or a sailor or whatever. Like, I like that, but I also don't like the fact that it's like, well, if I want this specific thing, then I have to talk to my DM and do all this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't, for newer players, it's definitely not as clear because, hey, again, I know I harp on this a lot, but talk to your DM. Your DM will probably be willing to, work with you. Unless they think that rogues should be nerfed, then you probably don't want to be with that DM. I'm just saying this now.
If they try to take away sneak attack, run.
If they're trying to ban rapiers, maybe that's not the game for you. I'm just
saying.
Run
in fear.
Like, just, if they're trying to ban things or nerf things willy-nilly, like, maybe reconsider playing with that person. Let's just talk to them, see if, like, you can, help them understand how they are mathematically incorrect about why these things should be banned. Because, when you look at Rogue, you're like, yes, it's a melee class. It does melee damage. Oh, but it has all these skills. Why should it do as much damage as a fighter? Except it doesn't mathematically. But like, that's just me.
Look, they don't want you coming at them with these facts and logic.
No, they don't, because they just go, I don't like rogues, so they should be nerfed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to.
I actually have been in the fabled, you can only sneak attack them if they don't know you're there. GM. I have had to deal with that once, and it is a
pain.
It is a time when you have to be like, well, okay, sir, I understand what you're saying. I hear you out. Counterpoint.
I understand the council has made a decision.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, okay, counterpoint.
No.
The rules say this. So don't have beef with me because the naming convention was dumb as shit. Okay.
I mean, when it comes to, I'm not going in on this rogue thing anymore. But when it comes to backgrounds, I think any kind of background mechanic, which is to say a mechanic that's about what your character was doing before they were a wizard, before they were a vampire hunter, before they were a space psychic with a laser gun, whatever, before they were a Jedi, any sort of mechanic about that any sort of background mechanic like that. I think it's a delicate thread the needle situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
that's why I like the way the touchstones are handled in like Vampire, but not really how backgrounds are handled in D&D.
Yeah. I'm not,
because there's a lot more player fluidity.
I think touchstones are okay. My problem is touchstones don't have any super strong mechanical influence, but then again, they are more valuable in the context of Vampire, so you could argue that they do. But either way, the point is, you don't want it to be so prescriptive that you limit the scope on what players can do, but you don't want it to be so broad that it's not really informing anything, right? It needs to be loose enough that it has some mechanical influence and is informing your character, but is not locking you down a hallway or whatever.
Yeah, which is, again, mostly the reason why I'm not huge on backgrounds, because as a mechanic and as it's written, you know, they're like, you were a sailor or a soldier or an entertainer, and some of them have a little bit more, you know, like, oh, you know, if you were a soldier, you could also have been a spy, or criminal was spy, sorry. Or like, oh, if you're an entertainer, you could have been like, you know, an acrobat in like a circus, or, you know, you were a bard, literally. But like, there's not enough of that. There's too much. It's too much of that hallway, you know? It's like, well, this is what you are. Like, you were a scholar. And it's like, okay, you can kind of play with that one, like what you were a scholar of, but like, sailor is like, okay, cool, I was a sailor. DM, talk to me. I need to know who I was a sailor for.
I mean, I'm okay with the backgrounds of 5e as they are, in terms of like, I don't think they pigeonhole you too hard, because like the skills you get from them are not gonna like lock you down any roads or anything.
Well, they're not gonna lock you down a road of like character creation, but they definitely feel like.
Are you talking about from a from a like concept standpoint? Like, what if I don't want to be, if I want these abilities, but I don't want to be a sailor?
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's the thing too. It's such it's so easy to just be like, oh, I want these abilities, I don't want to be a sailor. GM can be a dock worker. Like, that part of it is so simple.
I understand that, but my point is that rules is written.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how that works. You know, like I said, you can talk to your DM, and please do. Like, again, best advice you could ever give a TTRPG player: talk to your DM about what you want as a player.
In all fairness to 5e, they do specifically say, if you don't like the backgrounds that we've given you, you can just make your own and take a feature.
True.
So like, they do have it in there. Granted, is it the best system? No, but they did at least account for it to some degree, which is better than some games where it's just like, it is what it is. Fuck yourself. And you're like, cool. Thanks for that, but no thanks.
Fair enough. That is a factor in it.
Yeah.
Nope. Last sentence gone. Bye-bye. Meow.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
anyway.
You know, I already asked that question.
What?
I mean, I'll ask how I wrote it. Do you think game knowledge should be essential to knowing how to build a character without making them into a fucked up little goblin?
What a fucking statement. In what way, may I ask?
fucked up little gobliness, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make a goblin, and like that goblin he's literally a shitlord. Like he cannot do anything right because you fucked him up. You fucked up a perfectly good goblin.
I think Sam is referring to the I fucked up my character so bad it no worky.
Yeah.
And you're asking how much game knowledge you should have beforehand?
I mean, I already asked this question in a different way, but like, do you think that having knowledge of the game prior, or having someone explain it to you, so that you have a basic understanding of like what characters should be like, should be necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have some.
I think so. There's some hand-holdiness in it. Like, okay, this is a character template. Like, this is what a character should look like. Here's the specializations. Here is like how he should look. Yes. I absolutely think that there should be some kind of like, I mean, just given knowledge, and that whole, I've come from this game and now I understand how to make characters here. I can kind of apply that knowledge again. The legacy knowledge. Will also apply to that. So like me having played a bunch of, actually having played 3rd edition before I played Shadowrun, but also 3rd edition D&D. Sorry, I realized I had to 3.5, if you will. Me having that understanding of how skill points work from 3.5 and other video games, I'm like, I understand how to create a character. Whereas other people go in and they're like, yes, this weapon, I didn't read how it works, but also I do the cool thing. Hey guy, that doesn't work that way. I fucked my character because that's the only thing he has, and we have $0 to our name.
I mean, I think the game itself should give you something.
Mm-hmm.
And
ideally, yeah.
Ideally,
if it just leaves you totally blank at the jump, that I don't.
But here's the problem with that. What if players don't read?
I mean, there's literally no solving that problem. If players don't read, players don't read. So like,
I know.
As a designer, you can't, right? Like, you can't design for the lowest possible contingency, right? Like, that's just an impossible task.
I listen. I've literally. Hi, I work in IT. I have literally given people step-by-step processes with screenshots and little arrows pointing to where they should click, and they've still fucked up processes. Like, I mean, you can do as much possible for someone.
Yeah.
But they will still manage to, someone will still not be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's like if I gave you a step-by-step process on how to figure out how to solve this particular problem in math, and you're just like, no. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, there's just you can't design for the absolute bottom tier, because you just like, you'll keep designing and designing to try and help that bottom tier, and what you'll learn is eventually it's just like, some motherfuckers just ain't gonna do it. They just ain't gonna do it.
And I'm not trying to go off on a tangent, but it does feel like there are some games, and I do have to really specify. I'm not naming any names in particular. I don't really have one in particular in mind, but like, it does seem like a lot of games nowadays are starting to do that. Like, I was watching a review of Cyberpunk Red, and people have saying, oh, this is streamlining it. But like the guy I was listening to brought up a good point, which is like, they dumbed the shit down out of the like weapons and equipment. So rather than being like, oh, there's this gun that does this and it has like an actual designation. There's this gun that does this, it has a designation. This gun does this, that's a designation. It's just light, medium, and heavy gun. And I wonder if the reasoning is partially, streamlining, quote unquote, but it's also, well, people just weren't reading and they were getting confused. So we just made it as simple as fucking possible, Yeah, it is. Yes, part of it is certainly that. I mean, everyone take another shot. Here comes the fighting game talk. It's the same idea as removing the special, right? Like, well, nobody's using all their special moves, so we're just going to take them the fuck away. So now the characters don't have, half their special moves that they had the last game. It is that thing where it's like, at a certain point, it doesn't matter how basic. You could make, literally, actually, this game exists. There's a game called Dive Kick. Yeah.
It is 2 buttons, and motherfuckers still be like, nah, Not too much. Like
Jump.
it is
hit.
2 buttons. It's such a dive kick is such a like deconstruction. They made a controller and it's a massive fight pad with 2 giant green and blue buttons on it.
I love that. You know what that speaks to me? That speaks pettiness, and I love that.
Well, the best part is the guys who made dive kick are like veteran fighting game devs who did it kind of as a joke, but also as a deconstruction of the genre. Like very intentionally, and they knew what they were doing. Like the whole thing was planned. I believe they were Killer Instinct devs.
Maybe
the whole thing was like planned out. It's like
this just reminds me of when I was just like, yeah, I play Potemkin because it means I don't have to worry about air dashes because I can't use them.
Yeah, Sam's like, oh, I don't need to know how to. If my character doesn't have this mechanic, so I can just fucking ignore it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, you know, it's like you can only like dumb shit down so much until you just water the game to nothing. And then
it basically becomes every other game that's at that level.
It becomes every other game. That's the controller.
Oh my god!
I really like how it's labeled dive and kick.
Yeah, I love that.
You underestimated when I said giant buttons, didn't you?
No, I actually thought it was going to be a smaller fight pass.
No, it's a big boy. But like, yeah, you water your game down to try and hit the lowest common denominator of like, oh, what if people don't read or don't do this or whatever, and yeah, you just get to a point where it's like. It's like, oh, this is just like not a game anymore, or it's like the game becomes so generic, it's like not, you can't even identify it, you know. So yeah, there's a fine line for sure.
I don't know why this made me think of this, but like, so there are a lot of not necessarily tabletop games, but there are like forum RPGs that are like live games. And I remember reading this story about an anime one where this guy was playing as a character, and like apparently he fucked up his character creation so bad that people were just bullying him because he couldn't do anything to these characters because they were just better than him. And it's like, I don't know why this came up. I'll have to go and find it because I remember it had me in tears because cringe weebs, or as a weeb myself, cringe weebs are a different breed.
Fucking Christ.
Yeah, no, I listen. I wish I remembered more of the story because if I remember correctly, it was like basically there were like power levels, but it combined Bleach, Naruto, and Dragon Ball Z.
Oh god!
And like they had like different clans and abilities and shit.
Oh, stop!
That sounds like this sounds awful.
Yes, there's not a good thing about this.
Nothing about that sounded made me want to chew my tongue off.
Yeah, it's that fucking it's the whole adage of if you try to please everyone, you just end up pleasing no one.
Well, yeah, and then there's the other end of the spectrum. If you try to like, and this goes more specifically for like competitive games. If you try to appease the 1%, you end up throwing away your casual crowd a lot of the time.
But if you appease the casual crowd too much, you have no hardcore fan base.
Yep.
Like they just don't exist.
Yeah, so like, you know, D&D 5e really pissed off a lot of the 4th edition really pissed off a lot of people. But like 5e with the people who, you know, really love 3.5, they're like, I don't want to play this a lot of the time because there's no like the character creation system and the level up system is very different because there's no skill points. You just get I almost called it expertise. You get your proficiency bonus.
Yep.
Instead of skill points, and you just have proficiency and skills. You know, it's just math instead of big number. Yeah. Nah.
I actually, this is a call out to anybody who does this shit. I'm calling you out specifically. Fuck you. When people are like, oh, Pathfinder, don't you mean Mathfinder? But also, I'm gonna hack all these things into 5e.
Yeah.
You can actually kiss my ass cheeks.
This sounds like a weirdly specific crossover of people.
There's about like 10 different people I've met in the RPG space where it's like, and it's specifically the Pathfinder's Mathfinder joke, but then being like, so what if I add this entire system where like it just this is massive tirade I hear, and I go, they do that in Pathfinder. It was great. It was.
It's almost like they read the system, they would know that.
Yeah. No. I literally I spent 20 minutes talking to somebody who shall not be named about like it basically just was like a cavalcade of floating modifiers.
I
was to the point where you're like, at like Pathfinder though?
Yeah, because they were literally like, oh, so when you're this race, you get this, which adds onto this, and then you do this, which will equal this, and then you have like a plus 15 to this. But if you're doing this, then you're gonna have a minus to that. And I was like, this is Pathfinder. This is Pathfinder. I didn't say
this is the flat-footed AC thing.
Yeah. It was. This was me like smiling and then the internally screaming. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. That's its own subject, so I will not go on the rant right now. But yes, yeah, you are correct.
Yes. Love it, dude. I do in fact love it. It's so great when people are like that. Let's not play a system because of a meme, rather than
it's like I haven't actually read the system, but I heard the funny meme, so
yeah. I feel like that's a lot of the hate people give 4.4e. Like, I mean, several of our friends are guilty of this, like shitting on 4E when it's like, have you looked at 4E?
Played or looked at it? Yeah.
Pretty cool. Like,
having played 4th edition, the problems that I have with it are that it is very slow in comparison. And that's saying something. And a lot of the abilities are very samey amongst all the classes, because while you have this is a good system to have, if you do it right, tank, brawler, healer, like having designations for like classes and their subclasses, good, because it gives a player a better understanding using terminology. But also, if like all leaders have the same abilities with just different text, it's sad. You just end up playing the same thing, which is kind of a problem that 4th edition has. So
I don't remember enough to say, so Les shrug. Although I do remember the slowness for sure. That
no, the slowness is much more apparent.
Although I do wonder if I were
edition. I mean, now probably, but 4th edition also didn't do the. 4th edition was very board gamey.
Yeah, I do wonder if I came back at it now with like, a better understanding of how to play tabletop generally, and also with the help of Roll20, if it wouldn't actually be that slow.
It's funny because I remember a D&D tuber did that a while ago, and they were like, wow, we can't, like, I can't do this anymore. The whole group was like, no,
I mean, it is worth pointing out too that 4th edition was literally designed with the idea that you were going to use essentially something like D&D Beyond, because that was when Wizards was trying to make their own version of a D&D Beyond back in the day. And it just was not a good system, and it didn't really get off the ground. So
it wasn't a good. There are a lot of problems with it, mostly because it's like, how do you had to print out your character sheets, which was fucking painful.
I think there was some, I forget.
There was potential.
There was plans for like an app and shit, but I don't remember exactly what was going on there.
It was also at a time where D&D wasn't very popular.
No, so it was not.
They had a subscription service for it, which was like, but I think that's okay. But it was like too expensive at the time. I think it was like
something like that,
$15 to $20 a month.
I don't remember, but the idea though is like, now that we have the better tools, I have to wonder if like 4E almost makes more sense now than it did. I mean, it definitely makes more sense
like, as the game to me.
It's kind of funny.
But like at the same time, I'm like, okay, would I want to play this? Probably not. I'd rather play the World of Warcraft board game that's in my closet right now.
I don't know. I think I do want to play 4E. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that ship has sailed for me.
I don't think.
Can we at least can we at least all agree that like 4E has some really interesting like potentially game-changing aspects to it, and like the way that like things
it has
like
some amazing design
absolutely.
ideas.
Like because that's really what I was talking like the daily powers, or like the fact that fighters felt like fighters, that they had like cleave and pierce and cool shit like that. Like just to say that like the whole thing is bad, it's like you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Let's be real.
I think the thing that I liked a lot about 4th edition that is really pissing me off about 5th edition. This is not on topic, but oh well. Is that 4th edition tried to make running the game more fun and really giving the GM a fucking hand, whereas 5th edition is just pounding me in the asshole with a barbed wire bat half the fucking time GMing. Like 5th edition's like, LOL bro, good fucking luck. You know, and like 4E, they tried to, you know, give you a fucking hand, and I really wish we would go back to that. I think Matt's kind of on that page too. But anyway,
you very well maybe. Your plight is interesting, not because it's unfounded, but because I just find it fascinating.
I mean, it's a little bit of obviously, which you might say over exaggerating for comedic effect, but like I really do. Well,
you have like spoken to us about like the trouble you have sometimes.
It just feels like 5e really leaves me fucking hanging.
Yeah, you've said that, and I don't. You know, I don't necessarily agree. I understand, but I don't necessarily agree. And it's really interesting to know, like, to
let's put it this way. Other games have so much better guidance and so much better, so many better safety nets than I feel like 5e has. Maybe I shouldn't say safety net, but like,
well, 5e doesn't have really mechanics to running the game itself.
Yeah, there's no guidance. You just
like there's some guidance, but it's not. There's no mechanical guidance. Like, you know,
or the guidance is kind of non-specific.
Powered by the Apocalypse have fronts and, you know, things that you have to roll.
Yeah, there's mechanical design.
Otherwise, you just have to fucking essentially big brain it with D&D, which, like, yes and no. Like, you can.
I mean, there's a benefit to that, but
yeah, it's just, you know, you have to do the legwork. Nothing does it for you.
Me no fucking likey. Let's put it that way.
But that has nothing to do with character creation.
No.
Like, nothing. So I don't have a lot more questions on this, actually. But so I have one more. Do you think character creation should be more or less hand-holdy? And by that, I mean, like, do you think it should be way more like Powered by the Apocalypse, where you pick a playbook and it gives you all the stats and it says you have skill points, that's it? Or do you think it should be like, I don't think it should be in the opposite end of the spectrum at all. I don't think it should be just, here's like 20 skill points, go wild. But I do think that, I just think there should be guidance for that. I mean,
I don't think it's fair to say Powered by the Apocalypse is hand-holding. I wouldn't phrase it like that. The character creation is tighter.
It is very rigid.
It's more rigid by way, although it's not as rigid as it seems, is the funny thing. It seems very rigid, but what you find with a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games is because the character is so heavily dependent on what moves you have, and because so many Powered by the Apocalypse games let you take moves from other places or use moves with each other, or the moves are broader than they may initially seem, it seems really, really rigid, but it's sort of it's not a lie, but like there's a little more to it than that. That being said,
I understand that there's so here's the thing, Josh. There is depth to character creation. However, the depth isn't readily apparent because the game is doing it for you. The game is taking that understanding of depth from you because you don't need it right away, whereas other games do.
Yes. And the thing with Apocalypse World, though, or its subsequent children, is they it becomes really hard. It becomes kind of an apples to oranges situation, I feel like, because in a game like an Apocalypse World or a Dungeon World or whatever, Dungeon World's actually maybe not a good example for this, but in a game like Apocalypse World or Masks, let's say, your focus is often really, really honed in, and you're going for, like, you're generally going for a specific narrative something, right? So Apocalypse World, it's like surviving the scarcity. Masks, it's your teenagers in like an unclear world, and adults are telling you what to do. Avatar, Avatar Legends role-playing game, you're sort of on a hero's journey in the Avatar universe. There's usually like a very narrative like thing we're focusing on. In that scenario, I don't want the character creation to be big and broad or broader, because then you kind of, because if the character creation in like in Apocalypse World worked like D&D, let's say, or more like D&D, there's this weird potential to like make a character outside of, it's like, this is the thing we're doing, I'm gonna make this character over here though. And you kind of run into this problem with D&D, but with D&D you sort of expect it, because in a game where the premise is so broad of people going on adventures, it's, you expect an eclectic band. So I have a hard time saying what way it should go. But if I have to pick a lane, I think the character creation should be it should be guided enough that you can't fuck yourself into oblivion.
You can't make that fucked up little goblin.
You can't make the fucked up little goblin to the point of unplayability. It should be guided enough that you can't do that. But it should be most of the time open enough that, there's options, there's ideas, there's flexibility that you can collaborate between each other. I mean, if you think about, or like, if you think about like Blades in the Dark, for example, right? If Blades in the Dark was like a really open-ended classless building system, you could get some really weird scenarios, because it's like Blades in the Dark. We are all playing criminals who are like stealing and or murdering or doing generally illegal things in this very small area. And then some players like, in character creation, I made a guy from a different country who's a wizard soldier, and he's a servant of God. And you're like, we're not playing, what? Right? So it's like, there's that problem. In the other direction, I guess I have a non-answer here, really, other than, I guess the bigger problem is the unplayable shitty goblin. I guess that's probably the bigger problem. Yeah. So you need enough guidance to get away from that. Guidance
so you don't get that goblin.
Yeah. But then, it's also like, man, there's some games like Fiasco where the game is like, this is what you play, no discussion, because Fiasco is going for a very specific
that's thing. Like the one-page tabletop games.
It's so restricted,
because you're just doing one thing.
That's what I mean. It's like some games, there's actually a good reason to really zone the fuck in, right? What's the other one? Fiasco and what's the other one that it's similar to Fiasco, but you're not playing like, I don't know. Anyway, point being, there can often be a reason for the restriction, but I can't think of a good reason to ever let your players make a shit goblin. So
they really wanted to make the shit goblin.
Yeah, like I can't think of any good reason that you would design a game where it's a good idea to let your players make the shit goblin, shitty McGork or whatever the fuck, like
shitty McGork.
For me, I think, I guess here's another non-committal answer. It really depends on the kind of game.
Because like that's what I said in too many words.
Like pretty much. In a class-based game, I really don't feel like you need much hand-holding, because it's literally saying, here's the class, this is what it does, these are the abilities you have, this is how you pair them with other things. Like, say what you will about 5e, it literally tells you, like, this is how these things work. If you want a multi-class, this is how they will interact with each other. No ifs, ands, or buts. So in that instance, you need less handholding because it's kind of already doing it. But in a game like Vampire or Star Wars, I want a little bit more handholding because they just drop the skills on you and they go, there it is, have fun. And you're like, but what do these things do in context? Like, I'm reading the words on the page, but I don't know how I'm going to interact with these things if I ever see them, or if they pop up, or what I wouldn't know what to do in case of X, Y, or Z, you know?
I'm sorry. So I when you said they drop the skills on you, for some reason my brain went, yeah, I just do spreadsheets. And I'm like, that's not.
Sam,
and I was like, wait, but
it's because you're a different
You're a
breed.
psychopath, but most people are not going to do that, Sam.
Yeah,
I know. I'm aware. Well, because like I'm literally the type who so if it wasn't apparent, we play Final Fantasy 14.
What? Where?
I know, right? Crazy.
Dragons.
And in MMOs, especially ones with rating, there is what is called BIS, or best in slot. It's basically just your best gear. Usually it takes a little while for the community to collectively decide what is best in slot. So naturally, I sit down and make the spreadsheet for myself. And guess who's right about 95% of the time? Usually it's like give or take like a piece or a meld. And it oh God, I don't want to explain melding. That's not the time nor the place.
No.
But like, usually I'm right, because this is just the stuff that I do in my head anyways, but writing it down just makes it easier. So like when I get skill points, I'm like, oh, okay, I know how I want to build my character. And then like through play, I might. So here's another thing. If I haven't played the game before, I might realize that I like a particular system a little bit more.
Yeah.
Than I thought I was going to,
or less than you thought you might,
or less than I thought I was going to, and then I feel like I've made the fucked up little goblin, but only because I, as a player, don't like the way that I'm playing the game.
Yeah, it's like,
which is a whole other thing.
Third shot of the day, you go into a fighting game and you go, man,
sir, we need help. We have a problem.
Like,
this is intervention. You need to stop.
We need to admit you to a psych ward, please.
It's like, oh man,
I think Brett can only do the bit so many times.
It's like this character who's a ninja looks really cool, and then you play him and you're like, oh, he's kind of like a Rush Hour character, but really your heart was deep within the grappler life, and you just didn't know it yet, you know. And then you find out later down the road, you could have spent those 8 hours playing Chip. You could have been playing Potemkin. It's the same energy. It's like, oh, I thought I would like this mechanic, but I actually don't, and I like this other mechanic more. And then now you've made a shit goblin, sorta, but not 100%.
I want to know who this fucking person is, because you started describing yourself. Oh, ninja, that's cool. And then you went off into the deep end and described someone totally different.
You know what I meant.
You basically described me, actually.
I was trying to.
Oh, I like fast character. Me also. I like character that grab and throw into ground.
I was trying to get at a point of like two polar opposites.
I know.
Was the idea.
I know.
But like, you know. That is the thing I've run into before, where I've been playing a game. Video games, this happens to me a lot, where I'm playing a game and I'm like, oh, I usually go for the magic system. Oh, the magic system in this game sucks balls.
Yeah.
Never mind. Right?
Or it's like, oh, I usually do like using like Bloodborne as an example. I usually use Dex or magic, and guess what's not really great until a certain point in Bloodborne?
Yeah.
Dex and magic.
Yeah.
Magic is like, hey buddy, you want to use magic? Yeah, get to the end of the game.
Yeah, good luck, bro.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least you could say with Blood Tinge, it's like, level this skill up and you can sucker punch God. Like,
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also in.
So
I
like,
love that me and Sam both went to Bloodborne on that one.
I mean, it's definitely one of the games that's just like, hey, listen, we know that these stats exist, but in reality, this is a strength
really
character.
Exist.
You are a strength character. You've always been a strength character.
A fucking astronaut. Wait, I'm a strength character. Always have been.
Because like you like there are ways to play this game, Bloodborne specifically, like with these characters, but you are going to suffer a lot because your stats are not going to mean a whole lot
in the beginning. It's a rough ride, bruh.
Yeah, you're not going to get like anything that helps you unless you're one very good at Bloodborne and you can do weird shit to beat bosses really quickly to get specific items first. But like you're just not gonna have a good time. It's gonna be bad. Sorry, bud. Sorry for your loss.
Point being, though, yes, definitely making the shit goblin, making shitty McGork that isn't actually shitty McGork, but it's really just your version of a shitty McGork. That's definitely a thing. But you can't really do anything about that. You can't design your game around that problem. So sometimes it just be like that, Chief. But you can try to explain where, like what Isaiah was talking about, it's like I don't know what context I'm going to use these abilities in. You can do your best to explain this ability will come up in this context or whatever.
Burning Wheel, as we discussed earlier, Burning Wheel literally has excerpts of how players will use those mechanics, how they will use those skills, how they will use particular attributes. And like, I think that's great. I think that's a great way to do guidance with a system that is very elaborate. But then there are games like, Shadowrun, where you're like, oh, I want to play this character. And it's like, well, do ya? Yeah. Do you really want to?
Yeah, it's like if you have to...
I can't imagine playing the game and then being like, I want to be a technomancer. And then you're a technomancer and you're like, wow, I really fucking hate doing anything with the tech in this game.
I hate the way hacking works. It's like, no.
And you're just basically like, can I just make a new character?
Yeah.
Can I just take this guy out back and then murder them?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that problem in Star Wars where I was like, I am not liking this character. Can I please respec?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That one was like really specific though, because it wasn't apparent either, right? Like it wasn't, because it wasn't like you were interacting with a specific mechanic in Star Wars. It was just, I thought this style of fighting was one way and it's another way. And it's like, I meant to do this thing. I just didn't realize quite how the style of fighting worked, which is like a really weird, not easy to notice thing, or like not easy to recognize. But unfortunately, I don't think that's a really hard thing as a game, from a game design standpoint, to try and like get across,
Yeah.
Like, what is the style? What's the feel of this class? And you're like, it feels like Swordman. I don't.
Yeah. Like, for instance, I'm not a huge on playing casters in D&D. I've realized, like, I'm not huge on like full casters. I'm definitely more akin to like half casters. Because I like having the versatility, but being able, like, basically that. I like having versatility. I don't like being stuck in one lane. Like, I don't know if I could do fighter unless fighter has the huge rework where, they get all of their different tactical abilities, battle maneuvers, if you will. And it took me playing characters to realize that and realize how I like the system and how I like to play the game. That's kind of it. I guess what I'm trying to say here is play more games.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
Play different characters. Step out of your comfort zone. You might find something you like. You might something that you don't like.
That's another thing too, is there's some games where it's like, I'm not liking this, but I don't know why. And then that's a real tough spot.
Yeah.
And there's no easy solution to that one other than you just gotta kind of feel it out.
Yeah, you just gotta keep playing the game. Play different ways, play different things.
Play at your mom's house, play at your dad's house.
I may have asked this. Besides Burning Wheel, what's one game that you just like, I really want to fucking play this?
Shadowrun.
Right now?
Yeah.
Can I answer multiple?
Sure.
Give me your top two.
Yeah, I was gonna say give me your top three, but top
three.
Top three.
Urban Shadows, Avatar Legends, and what was it? Lost it. What was the other one?
It's gone. Dodecahedron.
Damn it! There was another game that I saw recently that was like jonesing.
Oh, they released 6th edition for Cyberpunk Shadowrun.
They did. It's bad.
Is it really that
It's
bad?
worse than 5th, apparently.
I might have to read both of these then.
I guess Hunter the Reckoning, or it's like one of the Hunter games, was probably another one that's pretty high
The
on my
Vigil
list.
is the newest one.
Whatever, yeah,
so
whatever.
I given what we've seen, what I've seen, probably Hunter the Vigil
the newer
2nd
one.
edition.
I'm always jonesing to play a bunch of different games, but there's other ones too that came to mind. But yeah, that's
I don't know.
probably top 3 at the moment.
I really like Shadowrun.
I love the idea of Shadowrun. I just want someone to make a good Shadowrun game.
Yeah.
Literally anybody.
Someone, please.
Because the company who makes it doesn't know what they're doing.
I think for me, I'd probably go for Cyberpunk. What was the other one? Cyberpunk, Never Knows Best / Monster Hearts, and
/ Monster Hearts.
Yeah, because they're both Powered by the Apocalypse games. It's the same basic premise.
I mean, on that, that would combine 2 of my answers. Because I said Urban Shadows and Avatar Legends, which are both Powered by the Apocalypse, but very much not the same game.
I also I was like, City of Mist sounds fun. Is that what it's called?
City of Mist does sound fun, and that game's weird.
Yeah, they were like, you get to like just become a hero of mystery. I'm like, so this is a Fate game pretending to not be a Fate game. I want to play this.
I don't know if the creators know anything about Fate, but that's very possible, I suppose.
They knew.
They might not have. Don't assume.
I'm going to assume.
Listen, bitch.
I'm going to assume that they're fucking weebs. All right.
Fucking weebs ruining everything, you goddamn weebs, all you fucking weeby ass weeb and weebs.
Hey, listen.
So Josh, what show were you watching recently?
Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
what does that have to do with anything?
No, nothing. I'm just
you fucking weebs.
Look, hey, there's a nice kettle over there.
Nothing like a weeb calling a weeb, right?
Listen, the JoJo gif where they're all stepping on the dude and it says weeb stepping on weebs and then it just says another weeb. That is my life. I live that existence. That gif speaks to me on a deep level.
I mean, most weebs shit on weebs.
That's what I mean.
It's just not okay. It's not okay when non-weebs shit on weebs.
That's my
right?
favorite
We're watching
one.
you.
Oh my god. All right. No, I had to share this with you. I'm sharing this on podcast too because this is another shit take, and I apparently have to clown on everyone with shit takes. This guy, I don't know whose man's. I didn't really pay that much attention, but they were like, I guess they're an anti-tuber, and they were like, I would never recommend any of my fans an anime that came out before this, around the 70s. Oh, sorry. Specifically, that wasn't Lupin the Third. So what the fuck?
What?
What?
That literally just reminded me of that fucking awful meme that I sent y'all a couple days ago of how like we have the fresh bloods.
God!
Like the most recent and the ancients.
The ancient weebs, and it was like SAO and My Hero. I was like, bro.
I was just like, bro, the oldest thing on there is like Konosuba and SAO. What the fuck?
Like, here's the quote.
I'm really sitting here as the Cthulhu of weebs, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm like,
this was said in a video. I would never recommend my viewers an anime TV series from the 70s that wasn't Lupin the Third.
Why? What?
I don't. I literally don't know. It doesn't. What the fuck?
What is that even?
So basically, the only good anime to come out of the 70s was Lupin the Third. This is the only one. Only one. Nothing else good came out that.
I just very quickly
in 10
Googled,
years time.
I just very quickly Googled fucking anime from the 70s. Gundam's on there.
Yeah, OG Gundam was on there.
OG Gundam, Conan. There is a lot of Lupin. That's there's fucking Astro Boy. There's like old fucking Ultraman shit. I don't.
Yep. Space Captain Harlock, fucking Space Battleship
amazing.
Yamato.
Yamato's also great.
Isn't
Voltron
from the 70s?
What?
No. no, there's that series Voltes, which is like Voltron, I guess, but not actually. Just another five-man band mecha. That pilot one.
Voltron was the 80s,
Yeah.
84.
Fucking OG Voltron was so good.
Hell yeah.
Unpopular opinion. I thought the new Voltron series was just okay.
Oh,
it
there
was
it is.
just okay as fuck.
Space
Like,
Battleship Yamato. Oh yeah, the old Devil Man, which
Yeah.
you know Isaiah doesn't like, but other people do.
No, I mean, Devilman's trash. Yeah, I said it. Look, I'm not saying that Cutie Honey is the best thing that Go Nagai has ever made. I'm just saying that Cutie Honey is the best thing that Go Nagai's ever made.
Are we just an anime podcast now?
No,
Like
No, but look,
No?
no.
Then why do we keep talking about anime?
I don't know.
look, it's only a matter of time before this podcast devolves into. So, what were you guys doing this week?
Anyway, anyway. Fucking Christ.
No.
Wait, did Ashido no Joe come out in the 70s? Hold on.
So, anyways, we're
What about
hitting
Ippo?
that,
Hold on. Yeah, this is
Ippo
not.
Ippo is
the
90s.
Oh,
It was the 90s?
Okay.
I thought it was late
Anyway.
80s.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Or I guess
Ashido no Joe aired 1970. I'm gonna kick the shit out of this dude. Sorry.
am I thinking of the manga coming out?
Probably
Maybe.
manga.
Yeah. The manga was 89. That's why. Yeah, I was like, it was late 80s. I could have sworn. Anyways, all right. Anybody got any final thoughts for character creation other than please play more games?
No, it's gonna.
I
Yeah,
beg
it's gonna be.
you.
Please read other fucking games. That's all I got for you.
Hold my hand through skill trees. That's all I got. That is just
Hold my
treat
hand.
me like I'm a kindergartner when we do skill trees, because I will try to balance build my way through it, and then I'm just gonna make absurd, and then I'm gonna be really annoyed.
This is a really
I'm
weird.
scared.
Okay, interesting. All right. I feel like we could psychologically tease this out a bit more, but anyway.
I mean, do you want to try?
No, not right
No.
now, but
No.
you know.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been Sessions Canceled Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. If it still exists by the time this episode goes up.
Oh, yeah.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. All the other platforms, Spotify, iTunes, any other podcast platform.
Your podcast platform of choice. Hit the follow
Yeah.
button, notification
Follow,
thingy.
bell, ding, 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 ring a ding, ding.
Ding dong.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.